All right, guys, welcome back. We are watching Koimonogatari episode 4, Hitagi End, part 4. Last time, we got trolled, and they didn't show us what's in the closet. I I really hope that they just tell me what's in it. I don't want, like, can they just get it over with? Can you just tell me what's in the closet? Although, like, at the same time, I talked about this last time, maybe they just won't. Maybe they will never tell me what's in the closet. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that makes sense. I don't know. I want them to tell me though. That would be pretty nice if I can know what's in the closet. Because like Kaiki's gonna like think about it, right? Like surely Kaiki will like tell me what's in the closet. He'll be thinking like, oh yeah, I saw this in the closet, right? Like at the very least, right? Like come on. Um, other than that, Guy Nizuko stuff. Ononoki showed up. She got a new thing. Peace, yay. Um, yeah. Kaiki got paid 3 million yen, which it seems like we're kind of working into Guy Nizuko's plan here. Although at this point, it seems like Guy Nizuko has some crazy, weird plan involving a bunch of stuff that we know nothing about. So I guess that makes sense, considering we're missing a giant chunk of the timeline from, like, August to November that we don't know anything about. So who knows? Who knows? I'm sure we'll figure it out eventually. So yeah, we're watching episode 4. Let's see what was in that closet, huh? You can line your own copy up with this if you want to. We are starting in 3, 2, 1. The moon. Back at our hotel room? Yeah. I love the Kaiki music so much. What do we got here? Yeah. So suspicious. Stay out of it. Interesting. Huh. Yeah. You just... Okay. I guess. Sure. That is interesting. Oh, sure. Right. I didn't think about that. Yeah, they knew that you were here. Right? A representation of his paranoia or something, a bunch of hooded figures. Um, okay. Maybe. I guess. I said, oh, okay. Wow. What is your enemy, huh? You were thinking of Guy Nizuko almost as like an enemy, right? Yeah. Hmm. But if this is like what he was thinking about Guy Nizuko, like doing this, to try and get him to continue. I guess he didn't really think that far, but he thought like, if I get told to pull out, then I'm just gonna want to do it more, right? Maybe this is just an extension of that, right? These lyrics different. I think they definitely are, like the second verse of the song or something, maybe? Oh, we have Kaiki singing. Okay, right. It's a duet. No, that's perfect. Oh my god. Oh, this is so good. Oh, this is so good. Oh my god. I already loved this opening, but this is perfect. Oh no, this is so good. Hmm. Never again. God, that was good, huh? That has to be like my favorite opening. Now, with that, with a duet with Kaiki, that's crazy. That's crazy. So like he's calling Senjikahara. Naturally, something like that. You would think, but would Guy and Izuko need to do that? You know what I mean? Okay, that's like, it doesn't sound like it. Thank you. He is so much like Araragi sometimes. Maybe. Okay, okay. What would Shinjogahara know? Or unless he's about to closet, right? Okay, okay. God, his hair looks so stupid. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this track. Okay. Okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because this is so different, right? This actually is very different than, like... Yeah, than Guy Nezuko approaching him with this deal, right? This is just someone telling him to stop, you know? It's different, it's different. Hmm... Ogi? Maybe? Ooh. There's an interesting shot. Yeah, yeah. Things we still don't really understand. Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I doubt it. Yeah. Not that her saying it to Araki would do anything, right? Mm-hmm. Just like Kaiki in that way, right? Hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can certainly imagine Aragi has a similar view of her, yes. After Oni, right? Yeah, she doesn't seem like the kind of person who would do this, you know? Just tell him to stop. Yeah, rub it in my face that I never get to see Hanekawa again. Like... True. That's impossible. Well, yeah. Is that right, though? I don't think so, right? Yeah, because her plan wasn't for Nautico to be the god in the first place, right? That's similar, huh? Sounds like familiar. I mean, yeah, uh-huh. Ooh, something about him not being able to understand it at all. I wonder if he can understand it. That shot yet again. And he took it. Did he not tell her that part? Well, yeah, exactly. It's suspicious from her end, right? Ah, did not catch that. Not exactly. I wonder why he doesn't tell her that he took the money. Of course. I don't know if Kaiki has a reason he can tell you either. Okay. Exactly. Oh, no, so he did tell her. She's just wondering why he's continuing anyway. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't know how about that logic, but I think that is an interesting question. I don't know. I don't know. I guess. Yeah, it's just nothing to worry about anymore, sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems like so obvious it's something she would foresee. Yeah, and that why would she do this, you know? Is it Ogi? Would it be Ogi? Because we brought up Ogi once, right? In this arc, like, kinda, right? But would Ogi do that too? You know what I mean? Okay, I guess. I suppose. Oh god. Okay. Maybe this is much less serious than we thought. No, but it still is, because it was someone who knew he was here, right? True, true. If you say so, yeah, sure. Yeah, then we have like 3 things going on. It's always like this. Yeah, it's not complicated at all already, I'm sure. Hmm. Okay, right. Sure. Or someone who's seen Kaiki around, right? It doesn't have to be a connection to Shinjikahara. Araragi wouldn't do that. No way. No way. Sure, yeah. Interesting how Kaiki says that so confidently. God, keep getting that shot of him. Hmm. Oh, right. Yeah, Araragi. Yeah, he would come confront Kaiki directly. Well, probably. And that's the only reason I think it could be Ogi, because Ogi like set up this situation in the first place, right? Interesting. Well, I we don't have it anymore, unfortunately. It's Kaiki Kaiki flushed it down the toilet, unfortunately. I said literally. I more than threw it away. Yeah, exactly. He had to show them. I'm not a cop. Oh god. Right. Uh-huh, uh-huh. What a thing to say. Yeah, huh. Did you? Did not catch that in time. Right. Okay. Sure. I'm getting this feeling of, like, Kaiki being, like, cornered almost, you know what I mean? But I don't know. Probably the same feeling he's having, you know? It's scary. It's scary. Yeah. I wonder how he feels about that, you know? Well, I don't know if we have time for 100, but that there are lies. Yeah, exactly. He'd have to go like 3 times a day. Unless he was here until March, I guess. Exactly. Severance payment. Sure. Interesting. She brought that up again. Yeah. Because she was worried about it before, too. She just hangs up on him. No, I think that's an interesting worry, though, right? Yeah. Especially for Kaiki, I think it is interesting, you know? He himself being the one who is, like, deceived in a way, you know? Because she's just like Kaiki, in a sense, you know, deceiving people like that. True. Why does Senjugahara view her like that? Okay. Interesting. Hmm. The snake poison isn't addicting. Interesting. That is a very interesting line, actually, I think. Beautiful. Beautiful art. Very nice. Very nice. Get your plan all figured out here. I gotta go back and pause on that one. I gotta make sure I look at it all. True. True. 4th of January. Okay. Uh-huh, uh-huh. So you want to give her, like, some kind of more concrete gift rather than just money? I don't know about liquor. Yeah, I don't know about sake. If you say so. I guess. Sure. Is she allowed to drink? Come on. My bad. Exactly. She's a god. I suppose. God should love gifts of alcohol. Sure. Maybe getting her drunk will help. Who knows? Oh god, he's putting so much money in. The man. She's dead. You did it. Yeah, exactly. No. Come on. He just feels generous, yeah. Fortunately, it seems she is a god. Interesting. What's made with rice? Yep. How nice, how great. She can pass the time. Beautiful. Is it now? I suppose. If you say so. White sand, but okay. Hi, Hanakawa. Okay. Oh my god, we get to see her again. Oh my god. Hi. We get to see her again. Post Tiger. Oh, they both know about each other, huh? What is she gonna be like? How, like, oh my god. Ah. Oh. Oh my god. I can't believe it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, way back then. And Nise. Interesting. Oh, now I have to think. I have to think about Kaiki and Hanakawa. Interesting. Yeah, why is she here? Exactly. Yeah, we just talked about how she wasn't gonna be here. Okay. Interesting. Hmm. But you aren't. That's something the old Hanakawa never would have done. That's for sure. Breakthrough. Exactly. I wonder how we can find him. Nothing to lose. Able to go unobserved. In what way? Yeah, from who? Oh, Gaian. Gaian Izuko. Be unobserved from her. That is a very interesting... Yeah. What a misfortune. I can understand that, right? So she thinks Gaian Izuko is at some way at the heart of this, I suppose. Well, he's the one trying to solve it. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure. Was it? I guess I can understand that. Yeah, yeah. You keep doing the white scene, black scene, it's like her hair. I gotta read that. I gotta read that one. I gotta make sure I catch that one. Please, please, give me more. Hmm. Sure, sure. Not that I think Kaiki would, like, ever do anything, you know. He's Kaiki. Sure, sure. What do we need to discuss? Nautico, obviously, right? Identical? Yeah, yeah. Very much so. We have so many, like, people acting, you know, in so many different ways. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Being a specialist, right? Kind of the heart of it. Hanakawa is almost acting as a specialist in this moment, you know? Absolutely, absolutely. It's like he's... Hmm. Of course, of course. Hmm. Ooh. Swear to a cat. Sure. Yeah, well, if she isn't suspicious of him, that must be so weird to him, you know? She trusts him so much, it seems. I wonder. That's what he would want in a way, right? To doubt. The melting icicle. Yeah, we can't just do that. Come on. Exactly, exactly. Yeah. A nightmare for him. Oh, yes, do it. Come on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a little bit different that time. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. The melting icicle. Very interesting. That's the end of the episode? Oh my god, it is. Okay. Huh. Hanakawa. Oh my god, she's back. Oh my god. I love her so much. Oh, it feels so good to see her. I just wanted to see her so badly after Tsubasa Tiger, right? And I feel like you can tell she's like different, you know? Just like the very basic thing of her like lying in a way to Shinjigahara and Araragi, make them think she's overseas when she isn't right now, you know? Doing things even in just this very subtle way, doing things behind their back. Like even though it's, you know, it's not like she's doing anything to hurt them in any way, or it's to help them, but even just doing it in that way. Something she could not have done before, you know. Ah, I wonder if the ending was going to be different too. Doesn't seem like it. Man, maybe this ending makes so much sense now. It shows us like all the characters like this, like right here, because they're actually just all gonna show up, I guess. We just need Kanbaru. Ugh. And Hajikuji. That was a good episode, huh? Hanekawa, God, she's back. Oh, man. Feels good. What's up, Fire Sisters? Sure. Sure. I... Sure? I... I don't know. How would I know? That's not... I know it isn't. There's no way to know. I don't get it. I don't get it. Thank you. Thank you. I totally understand that one. For sure. For sure. Exactly. Okay. We'll talk about the episode in the discussion. Okay, let's talk about the episode. This is another one of those episodes that only had like 3 scenes, so I don't know how long the discussion is going to be, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll make the most of it. Because Hanekawa is back. Finally. Thank God. How long is it? Let me get this shot when we first saw her. Oh man. She's here. I literally I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I mean, they've been teasing it this whole time, right? They keep bringing up Hanekawa. Senju was talking about Hanekawa earlier in this episode. She was like, "Oh, you're definitely not gonna see Hanekawa." I was resigned to it, you know, but she's here. Oh my God, it's amazing. It's amazing. I think God, there's so much I could say about her, right? I have really wanted to see her since the tiger, right? I've just really wanted to see like how different she is, you know? Um it's not like a striking difference, I feel like, right? Like obviously, you know, she's still Hanakawa. It's kind of the entire point of all of that is right is that she is still herself, right? The tiger was part of her, yeah, in a way, you know what I mean? Um so it's not like she's a completely different person, right? But I think there are certainly subtle differences to just the way she's acting, and some of the things that she says here that I think certainly show that she's different, right? And I love it. I love it so much. How many episodes had it been since we've seen her? We did this before a while ago, but like what? I don't even remember anymore. All of Kabuki. What was after Kabuki? Hana, right? All of Hana. Uh, then all of Oni. I hope I don't have the order wrong here, right? It was Tsubasa Tiger, Kabuki Monogatari, um, Hana Monogatari, Oni Monogatari, and then this, right? I'm pretty sure I have that right. So, I mean, it's been like 15 episodes or something, right? It's been forever. Oh God, that's the longest streak we've ever went with no Hanakawa, right? Like for sure. Crazy, crazy. Because she was such a constant for so long earlier on in the story, you know. It was like she was like one of the main characters, you know. It feels great to see her again. Immediately, like something that's very interesting about her behavior is her approaching Kaiki like this. I think is so interesting. Her taking the initiative and wanting to talk to Kaiki. I feel like there has to be something you could say about there were comparisons between Kaiki and Araragi all the time, right? Like there's the obvious one that the show itself brings up, the idea of Kaiki being the dead tree, Araragi is a tree, right? There in some way you can imagine Kaiki almost being like an old embittered version of Araragi. You know what I mean? Like if you want to think of it in that way, I don't know how much merit there is to that idea, but like it's something that the story itself is kind of brought up, you know. So Hanakawa being willing here to go up and talk to Kaiki like this, God, I think that's very interesting, you know? It's different than, like, what she did with, like, Episode in Tsubasa Tiger, for example, I think, you know? Because, of course, in that case, Episode just kind of showed up, right? And they brought up how weird it was that she was, like, treating him so normally, despite knowing what he was like, right? Because he just randomly showed up, right? She was doing her normal pre-Tiger attitude of not wanting to bother anyone, so of course she wasn't gonna say anything to him, you know? But in this case, it's interesting because she is the one who is initiating this conversation with Kaiki, you know? I could still run away, but chose not to. Why would he run away from Hanakawa? I guess Kaiki has heard a whole bunch of things about Hanakawa, right? I wonder. I was gonna say I wonder if he knows more about her than we've seen him learn, but I don't think so because he didn't know who she was at all before this arc, right? Not that we, you know, he, yeah, yeah. Kaiki Deshu. Doesn't seem to be much need for self-introduction of that short sort. Absolutely, absolutely. This because she helped with the investigation before. God, she looks so good. Ah, I love her so much. I love her winter clothes. Very nice, very nice. Hmm. She helped the Fire Sisters. Exactly, exactly. I wish I understood what Kaiki meant here. Kids shouldn't speak in such a humble manner. I assume it just has something to do with like the way she's speaking, but I don't know nearly enough about like Japanese to like understand what he means by that. Like the translation of the lines, I don't really get. I'm not really picking up on what he means by this exactly. But I can't help but feel like that has to be meaningful in some way. I don't know. I don't know. Hmm. Of course, it is also interesting him. There's been this interesting thing in this arc of Kaiki viewing people as kids, right? He calls Shinjagahara a child all the time. He, of course, is calling Hanakawa a child here, right? Kids shouldn't speak in such a humble manner, right? Um, it's interesting because, like, as we've brought up in these discussions, right, the idea of Kaiki being an adult and what that means for, like, him as a character, right? The roles that adults have played in the story have been very, very particular, right? Because all of the characters that have been going through like specific character arcs and have been dealing with these emotional problems that the arcs have been centered around have been children, right? They've all and like of course, right, it's kind of it makes sense that children go through these kinds of like essentially like crises about like identity. That's kind of like the what it all boils down to in a way, right? And that adults, once you've grown up and gotten older, that they have dealt with that kind of thing, right? I mean, I've said it many times. I just think it's interesting how Kaiki himself is someone who, like, I mean, again, this we're bringing up things that I don't know about because we don't know that much about Kaiki's past. But Kaiki himself is someone who seems like he went through similar things at some point in his life, and that has left him to be the way he is now, right? Which is interesting. And again, it's like it's can be argued whether or not that makes him in some way similar to the other characters in the story that are children, right? In terms of like them having emotional problems, right? I mean, that's a pretty everyone has emotional problems, right? But like you know what I mean, right? The Kaiki could almost fit into that category more easily than someone like I don't know, Guy Nizuko or Oshino, right? So the fact that he keeps calling people children like this, especially Shinjagahara, his he repeats all the time that Shinjagahara is just a child, right? It's like this sign of disrespect towards her, which I think is very interesting. Maybe disrespect's the wrong word, but you know what I mean, right? Because I don't think he understands the growth and change that she has gone through, um, since he like saw her last, right? It's almost like he still views her in the way that he did, way back, when he deceived her for the first time. You know what I mean? It's very interesting. It's like him calling other people children in this way. It is a it is interesting, like what you can imagine that could mean to him, right? I'm not really sure exactly, right? As a specialist, of course, it's interesting because, like, obviously, Kaiki is a specialist, right? He's not just an adult; he's a specialist too, just like pretty much every other adult we've seen, right? So of course, I mean, that alone makes you know that in order to be a specialist, you have to have like some kind of deeper understanding of these emotional problems that characters go through, right? So saying that Kaiki in any way can be categorized alongside like the other children characters in this way, I think that's unfair. I think it's more so him calling other characters like Shinjagahara, like Hanakawa maybe in this case too, saying that they're just kids and that they should be acting differently in some way, or saying stuff about Shinjagahara, treating her like a child, right? It's like this discounting perhaps the change that has happened within Shinjagahara, maybe something about Hanakawa here too, right, in some way. Um and I don't really think that's like a bad thing specifically, right? Um it's just certainly a way he views the world, right? I think it fits with his whole thing about like the past, the idea that children should act a specific way, or perhaps it's more he understands it more than I think, and the idea is like him repeating that Shinjagahara is just a child. Maybe there's more to that than I think, right? And the idea, alongside like this, the idea he brought up at the end of Nisei, never, no point in moving on from or like overcoming the past, that kind of thing, right? The idea that Shinjagahara herself is still in the past in some way because she isn't an adult yet, right? It just makes me think more of the idea of like Kaiki not wanting other people to view the world the way he does, right? Like he has an understanding of the way he himself views the world being like negative and bitter, right? And he wants other people to like not have that happen to them, right? Which again, I think is related to his whole like playing the villain almost for other people in a way, right? But that's interesting too, him playing the villain for others, because we have to think about what he's doing in this arc, right? I hope I'm not repeating myself a bunch from other discussions. Maybe I am. I don't know. We have to think about what he's doing in this arc, right? Where he is helping Senjugahara in this moment, right? So it's very interesting because if he is in some way like knowingly and intentionally playing the villain for other people, like for Senjugahara, right, to give her someone to blame things on other than a traffic accident, perhaps. Um, it feels kind of like he's undermining that, by doing what he's doing in this episode, you know. So it makes you think that perhaps it is some kind of more personal, emotional reason for him that he acts that way, you know, and a another byproduct of that almost is the effect that it has on like Senja Gahara and other people, you know. I don't know. It's very very interesting, right? So we're talking with Hanakawa. And this is another moment. This is another moment where it's like just a subtle thing that makes you realize that Hanakawa is certainly a different character now, in a way, right? That she's changed. You know, she really is different ever since the tiger, but only in a subtle way. It's just like what she said at the end of Tsubasa Tiger, right? There's never been a moment where she isn't herself, right? She's always been Hanakawa. So it's like expecting her to be completely different now. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? Of course, she's still Hanakawa, right? But I just think this subtle thing that she is here, right? This almost like deception in a way towards Senjugahara and Araragi, right? Them thinking that she's overseas when really she isn't, you know? It's nothing like that, where I think old Hanakawa, like pre-Tiger, pre all of that, you know? I don't know if she would have been able to do this. You know what I mean? I don't know if she would have been able to go overseas to look for Oshino at all by herself, you know? Like her whole plan originally to go out and go traveling, would she even be able to do that at all pre-Tiger? I don't know, because even that, I think it's so focused on her in like this weird way, you know? I don't know if she would have been able to do that, you know? Hmm. Although I don't know, at the same time, you can also view it, of course, as like almost um a measure for her own isolation, you could say, which would be something that the way she thought about like herself and her relationships would lead her to, like before all the Tiger stuff, right? Hmm. It's almost it's an almost useless effort, kind of like a wasted effort to ease their mind. But I thought I might break through by pulling this feint trick. Break through what exactly? I feel like we don't really have a clear answer for what she means by this exactly. To break through. Break through what? The thing I don't know why this jumped to my mind immediately. What it makes me think of is like Araragi's attitude about this. That in some way it's like her showing Araragi that she is going this far to try and fix the situation, that his mind would change about like what's going on with Nautica, right? Um, Maybe that's too far though, because like what would it mean for Araragi's mind to change about Nautico? It would be he wouldn't be so preoccupied with saving her, so he would entertain other solutions for it, right? Which like what would those other solutions be, right? Like killing her, like something like that. Like that doesn't make any sense, right? So I don't know. I don't know. I kind of already knew that Oshini-san wasn't overseas. We're never going to see Oshino again, are we? Like, it's never going to happen. I don't know. Or we're either never going to see him again, or it's going to be the end of the story. And I mean, like, the end of the story. Like, he will be, like, something that isn't even in the anime yet. We will see him at the very, very end. Like, I don't even know, right? Man. Because he totally, like, fills that role, you know what I mean? Like, the mentor character who left it's one day, and one day he'll come back, and he'll be so happy of how much everyone has changed, you know? So I felt that I still did it because I had nothing to lose. But I thought I'd be able to fool something, be able to go unobserved if I went overseas once. So she is talking about Guy and Izuko, which is very interesting. There's that too, but if I were to name someone, it'd probably be Guy and San, which is so interesting that she views Guy and Izuko as being at like the heart of all of this in some way. Um, which is very interesting. It makes sense that Hanakawa, of course, has this negative view of Guy Nizuko. Um, and I think, hmm, I wonder, right? If this was old Hanakawa pre-Tiger, I think I would take this more seriously to think that, like, in some way, she knows something about Guy Nizuko and her relationship with the situation. But I'm not saying this for sure, but I just do wonder, because this is post-Tiger Hanakawa, she's certainly more in touch with her emotions and more willing to, like, have them exist now, right? She does have a personal dislike of Guy Nizuko, I think, right? Um, how could she not, in a way, right? And I wonder if in some way that is twisting her judgment almost here about what she thinks is at fault or what she thinks is going on here. The only reason I say that is because I feel like this really feels like a red herring almost. Everything that's going on with Guy Nizuko, like just the stuff they say about her here. That like with at the beginning here, all of this stuff with like this letter under the door. It's kind of, I mean, the characters themselves bring it up too, but that doesn't seem like it was Guy Nizuko, right? Like it certainly doesn't seem like it. Hanakawa's attitude here about Guy Nizuko is interesting. Um, but again, it's like she's saying that Guy Nizuko is in some way like at fault for something, or in some way like this ominous force, which I guess I don't disagree with. But is it some way at the heart of all of this in some way? And I just don't know if it is. And the only reason I guess I disagree is because my perception of what Guy Nizuko is doing with Kaiki with the 3 million yen seems like she is doing that to get him to succeed, right? To continue pushing him along to try and succeed here, right? Because if she went out and said, Kaiki, thank you for helping me with Nautico, I'll give you 3 million yen, Kaiki wouldn't want to do it anymore because he hates Guy Nizuko, right? But because of the way she did it, telling him like, "Oh, please don't do it. You're gonna fail, and you could never deceive her. What if you fail and everything goes horrible? Of course, the way Kaiki is, that's gonna make him more stubborn and make him really want to do it, right? And at the same time, she gave him the 3 million yen. Not only did she give him the 3 million yen, but she let him feel like he's like deceiving her by taking it and not stopping and all of this. You know what I mean? It was like perfectly engineered. To get him to continue, right? In a way that makes him think that he's like getting one over on her. You know what I mean? Um, so all of this stuff about Guy Nizuko somehow being the one at fault for all of this, I don't know. Is the author trolling me with it? You know what I mean? Is up a red herring? Maybe, right? Maybe. Hmm. Who directly receive some advice from Gun Senpai? Of course, I mean, also, like, I guess to take the line seriously for a moment here, the idea that, she wants to be unobserved from Guy Nizuko. Like, what does that mean, right? Something to do with the way Guy Nizuko's, like, knowing everything works, I guess, right? This idea that she's, like, observing everyone in some way. Obviously, the idea of Guy Nizuko knowing everything makes her seem like a very, like, godlike character in a way, right? Um, so this idea of trying to avoid, like, her never-ending observation, that is interesting, right? I wonder. At the same time, to entertain this more, we do know from Ononoki in the last episode that Guy Nizuko does have some weird plan about all of this stuff that we don't know anything about, right? So maybe there was more to this than we understand, in the sense of she did give Araragi the talisman, and her plan was for Shinobu to be the god on the shrine. Why does Guy Nizuko want that? Why does there need to be a god on the shrine? I guess we don't really understand yet. It's in some way important, and it's something that Guy Nizuko wants. All we know is that Ogi intervened, right? That's what Ononoki said. I mean, Ononoki said somebody somehow intervened, but we know who that is, right? It was Ogi, and that's what led to the current situation, right? Which is interesting because in that sense, it's like you would feel like Hanakawa would know that, right? You would feel like Hanakawa knows, of course, um, assuming that she's like talked to Aragi about the talisman, right? I'm assuming when Guy Nizuko gave Aragi the talisman, she was like, feed this to Shinobu. And Aragi was like, okay, I'll think about it. And then he kept it in his drawer for 3 months or something, right? Um, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Hmm. I wanted her to think that I was taking relevant actions, so to say. So I did come back home for an instant like this, but I'm going to fly out again tomorrow morning. She's really, I don't know. What is up with Guy and Izuko? I just don't know. I just don't know. It seems like this sort of thing is pretty useless given it's Gun-san who knows everything, right? Right. But by going overseas, it was easier for Shinjigahara to act, right? And that seems like that can push like Araragi as well, right? Like again, this feels like something that the old Hanakawa would never do, right? Like she is using her own actions in some way to influence these people she cares about, right? Like um and we kind of know from like what Shinjigahara said in like episode 1 or was that episode 2? I don't remember. Um about how like Hanakawa was trying so hard to help them all and all of this, that it did affect Shinjigahara in some way, right? That it like pushed her to be willing to like go get in touch with Kaiki and do all of this, because she sees how hard Hanakawa is trying for their sake, doing something like that, even that, I don't think Hanakawa pre-Tiger would have been able to do that. She'd be so preoccupied and so worried about the effect that her actions would be having on them. Especially in this way, like this, yeah, she's like calculating the effect that she's going to have on them in this way. Yeah, a happy calculation gone as planned. Exactly, exactly. Oh, there are text flashes here, weren't there? That one to read. She said, looking deep into my eyes. Was that the only one, or is there another one? Oh, here we go. I never met anybody who could look someone in the eye so earnestly. Interesting. What a thing to say. Someone who can look someone in the eye so earnestly. God, that even that alone feels like such a meaningful change for Hanakawa in a way, right? Obviously, like the idea of looking people in the eyes, it makes you think of like Nautiko, right? We know she certainly looked in people's eyes a lot, or she was so aware of other people's eyes, right? But Hanakawa, so earnestly looking in other people's eyes, I think is interesting now, because it's like she's accepting the effect that she has on others instead of like fearing it so much, right? Like looking in another person's eyes, almost like like what they say about like lying to people. How they say how it's like a myth that if you lie to someone, you're like not going to want to look in their eyes. But it's like the actual truth is that when someone is lying to you, they really want to look. They want to look at you. They want to see like how you're reacting to their lie to see if you like buy in it or not, right? Um, in this case, I think it's kind of in the same vein as that, not in terms of lying, but it's like Hanakawa is now like in tune with this idea of her actions and the things she's doing, like affecting other people. She's looking them in the eye instead of being the way she was before, being so afraid of the way she would affect others. Please help Shinjigahara-san out. And even just that, right? Would she be able to ask someone to do something before? No way. She can do it now. Insane. Crazy. So we head back to Hanakawa's hotel. Man, we're kind of doing this discussion backwards, but you know what? That's okay. We head back to Hanakawa's hotel room. We got something to talk about. Kaiki has something to talk to her about. I assume we're just going to talk about like Nautiko and the situation, right? Now the question is, does Hanakawa have any kind of insight on Nautiko? Um, has Hanakawa when has Hanakawa ever met Nautiko? In Bake, when Nautiko saw Hanakawa and ran away immediately. Um, in Tsubasa Cat, right? Has there ever been any other time that Hanakawa has seen Nautiko at all? I don't really think so, right? She probably knows stuff about Nautiko just because, of course, Araragi kind of like talked to her about everything all the time before, right? So I'm sure she knows about her. But what kind of specific insight would she have? I do wonder if all that stuff I just said about this idea of like looking in another person's eyes, if in some way you could say that is a way that she herself could emotionally relate to and have some kind of insight on Nautiko, right? Because it is similar if you think about it in that way, right? That Nautiko herself, it's similar and it's like in opposite ways, right? Nautiko, the same way as Hanakawa, is hyper aware of the effects that her behavior have on the way that other people like think and feel and the way they view her, right? Um, like Nautiko is someone who avoids your gaze, right? We know that from her, like, growing out her bangs, right? Wanting to look down. But she's so aware of the way that other people look at her at the same time, right? All the stuff we just said about Hanakawa herself, like always being so aware of the way her own actions, like, make other people feel. That's very interesting, right? That is certainly a connection between them, in terms of both of their behavior that was like has been a problem for both of them, being so relying so much on how the other person, like in any given interaction, is like reacting to you. So I wonder, right? Maybe, maybe she will have something to say that will be very, very insightful in that way, right? But I guess again, it's like the problem is, just like was kind of set up in like episode 2, I believe, no one like knows what's up with Nadeko, right? No one knows. The closet. The closet, right? Kaiki saw what is inside the closet. So he has to know. He has to know something now, right? That is our only possible saving grace of the situation, right? It's like Shinjigahara said in episode 2. No one knows how the situation reached this point. And the answer to Nadeko's situation is not going to be having her stay as the god forever. It's not going to be Kaiki doing his classic thing of telling them that someone just died in a car crash, um, leaving all of that stuff in the past forever and never resolving it, and then just, being stuck forever, right, as a god, right? That's not going to happen. That isn't going to happen. That won't be a solution, right? Not for Nadeko. Not for Nadeko, I don't think, right? Um, and no one like actually knows the reality of what's up with her. I think if Kaiki was more willing to see Nadeko as himself in a way, I think then he would be able to like solve the problem for real as a specialist, right? Um and for that reason I also wonder if that is why Guy and Izuko is essentially having him be the one to solve this, right? Like of course it was Shinjigahara who approached him, but Guy and Izuko, I think it shows that Guy Nezuko actually trusts that he is going to solve it properly because of her approach to this, right? Like Ononoki said that she's afraid of his failure, but I wonder if Guy Nezuko knows that he's the only one who actually could solve it in this way, because of the similarities between him and Nadeko. And I think the only thing I can imagine that would be the only clue, the only key to us solving this problem will be whatever was in the closet, right? Because just like we've talked about the closet so many times before this arc, the idea of it being this representation of like this genuine side of Nadeko, right? That Nadeko hasn't been able to erase everything about this real version of herself, right? That some part of it still exists, not only just within her, but she expresses it in some way because it exists physically in the closet in some form, right? And that has to be the insight that Kaiki will need to do something, right? To do something to help her, to understand her as a character, to be able to talk to her about the real problem here, because Kaiki will be able to relate to it so much, right? Kaiki will be able to understand it so much. He's been living it for however old he is, however long it's been since Gantoe died, maybe, right? So it's got to be the closet. It's got to be the closet, man. Hmm. I want to ensure our intentions are identical. Hmm. It seems that for this current case, all sorts of people are thinking all sorts of things, and many opinions are crossing over. Like, no kidding, right? We've got so many characters who seem to think different things about the situation and like what's up with Nautico and like all of this, right? Like, I just don't even know, right? To those that make a living from work of my sort, people's feelings are most important. Of course, right? Of course. What I want to know. Hanakawa, your position is one to save Shinjigahara and Araragi, right? Of course, right? That's what we've got to do, right? Yeah, yeah. Doesn't have to be me who saves them. Right, right. Whether it be me, Oshini-san, or you. She swears to a cat. What the hell? That's not an expression that I know of, but perhaps it is some high schooler code. Something like that. Something like that. You're not going to ask me for anything, where I stand, or rather how I feel. Which, again, I think it's so funny, because it's just like Hanakawa yet again. I guess it's just like what he said, her so earnestly looking in his eyes in a way, I think she understands him in a way, right? I don't think she is, like, fooled by him in a sense, right? You don't want to confirm those with me. I wonder why I accepted Shinjigahara's request. And I think it bothers him. It makes sense that it bothers him, right? Because he understands how he comes across to other people. So I think, again, it's like it's unclear if that is an intentional thing about his behavior, or if he just acts like this. And of course, he is aware of how he comes across to others, right? But either way, he knows how he comes across to others. So of course, it's it has to feel so weird for Anakawa to just like trust him, right? Of course, of course. Hmm. And she just, yeah, he's not given up on that. Like we can't just breeze past that. He's saying that you can see through my feelings, right? That's a very interesting way to phrase it, right? To see through his feelings, you know. It's kind of telling that he phrases it in that way, you know. Because like, yeah, I think that that kind of is the reality in a sense, right? Is that in some way she can, I believe, right? That she understands that their intentions are identical, right? That he also wants to save Senjogahara, right? Of course, you know. It seems like you know everything. Absolutely. Hmm. How about we exchange some information? Okay, well, let's go back and actually talk about the rest of the episode other than just Hanakawa. I just wanted to talk about Hanakawa so badly. We got a good 30 minutes of Hanakawa out of the way. How's that sound? How's that sound? So we don't get to see what's in the closet, of course. It's trolling me. I assume, are we ever gonna know? We have to know. No, we actually have to know. Because again, how are we going to solve this, right? How are we going to get past the problem that was set up about the situation if Kaiki doesn't have further insight to her after seeing that closet, right? Like, no, we are going to know something about the closet, right? Whether or not we actually know what was in it directly, Kaiki is going to acknowledge it, and it is going to be key to how we solve this. It like has to be, right? It would be insane if it isn't, you know? So Kaiki finds this slip of paper in his room. I don't know what to think about this at all. It says stay out of it, and we have a very long, extended conversation with Senjogahara about this paper. Now, so there were several possible culprits for what is going on here, right? Guy Nizuko is the obvious one, because on the surface, of course, as we've talked about, it seems like Guy Nizuko is trying to get Kaiki to stop, right? Trying to get him to not do this. I think that is incorrect. I think Kaiki's dumb, and it is obvious to me that Guy Nizuko is doing this on purpose, right? Like she just so happened to give him a bunch of money, literally one scene after he was like, "Oh, I don't have enough money to keep doing this," you know, um, in a perfect way where he was so motivated to accept it and like, backstab her in this way, you know, which he wanted, which he feels like is him winning, right? So like, yeah, right. So why would Guy Nizuko do this? Why would Guy Nizuko put this thing under his door that just says "stay out of it"? You know, this is such a different approach to um compared to like what she did before. You know, assuming we should take this on the face of it and assuming whoever gave this to him actually wants him to stay out of it, right? As the other way to look at it, of course, is that this is in the same vein as what Guy Nizuko was doing, right? Because the there's two options. Either one, the person who is putting this note here knows nothing about Kaiki and is assuming that he is that he would like fold to a warning like this. That in some way this warning is actually going to make him stop and stay out of it, right? Which the problem with that is it's like the opposite, right? He flushes it down the toilet. It convinces him more, just like with Guy Nizuko, that he should keep doing what he's doing. He doesn't consider for a moment that he should stop, right? Or two, that whoever slept this under his door, like Guy Nizuko does, I think, understands Kaiki in some way and knows that this kind of note would just motivate him more to keep doing what he's doing, right? The problem is, who the hell is there who is like that other than Guy Nizuko, right? Because again, the only other answer I've been able to come up with is Ogi. But my question is, would Ogi do this, right? Because this is like a sloppy move, right? If Ogi wanted him to stop, because Ogi is the one who orchestrated the situation to be the way it is, right? I have questions about Ogi's motives for that, which is interesting. One, because what's interesting about Ogi having been the one who orchestrated the situation with Nautiko on the shrine is, was the goal of all of this just to get like Araragi killed? Is Ogi trying to kill Araragi? And is that, because like I can imagine that in a sense, right? Again, my interpretation of Ogi at this point is that in some way she is representative of, she is an oddity that is very closely related to Araragi and is in some way representative of like his whole like self-destructive like rules about stuff, right? So in that sense, her Ogi wanting to kill Araragi would like make sense, right? Because we know in like Kizu, for example, that it was that same thing when Ogi was like still inside of Araragi in a sense, right? That he was like suicidal, right? And those things like that way of living directly led him to like suicide, like his self-destruction, you know. So in that sense, Ogi wanting Araragi to be dead would like make sense, right? So I guess you could say that Ogi orchestrated this whole situation for that purpose, right? Problem with that is one, that's insane because this is like the most insane, convoluted, bizarre like plan to get Araragi killed ever. Right? Like this is ridiculous, right? Like Ogi had this brilliant 500 step master plan where she convinced Nadeko to do all this crazy shit to like break into Aragi's house. She made Nadeko go insane. I just like I crazy, right? Insane, right? But maybe Ogi's like Guy Nizuko and she knows everything. Like that would be crazy if she did that for this purpose, right? The other idea, of course, for the reason why Ogi has in some way um, orchestrated the situation is one, it's possible that Ogi didn't know it was going to end up this way, right? I kind of like that idea. That in some way Ogi, like if you think back to the first episode of Otori, when Nadeko talked to Ogi, and Ogi said that stuff like, something something about Nadeko being like a side story or whatever. I believe that was her wording, right? Um, it makes you wonder if perhaps Ogi herself underestimated Nadeko and didn't understand that it was going to end up this way, right? And had no idea that it was going to be this fucking insane shit with her becoming a god and all this crazy stuff going on, right? Um, of course, I mean, that leads you to question why Ogi approached Nadeko in the first place and why she did anything she did, right? Which brings me back to, like, we talked about it before already, about, the motivations for Ogi's actions perhaps in some way being fueled by what she represents, like, for, like, Araragi, right? Um, being, like, representative of some kind of system of rules, right? Like what she said at the end of Oni, right? Like, punishing liars, that kind of thing, if that's her job, is that what she was doing with Nadeko in that moment, right? That's what I would think, Um, there's just way too many questions about Ogi's motivations and why she's doing what she's doing and all of this, right? And none of them really lead me to a point where I would think that Ogi would do this, right? This seems so sloppy, um, because Ogi would have to be stupid and not understand Kaiki in any way. Especially when Kaiki is so similar to Aragi in a lot of ways, right? I just don't think Ogi would do this, right? I don't think Ogi would have this dumb move of putting this down here, unless Ogi is the one who did this and she actually knows what Kaiki is like, and in some way this letter is an attempt to make him keep doing what he's doing. But then I just have no fucking idea. I have no idea why Ogi would do that, or why she would want Kaiki to dismantle the situation that she herself put into place. So, basically, in summary, I have no idea what to say about this letter at all. that's really what it comes down to, right? He gets in the shower. Ordinarily, I prefer my showers hot, but this time only cold water would do. As I felt my body turning blue, I pondered. So Kaiki is kind of stupid for a moment. Just how many people know that I'm staying in this hotel? That is an interesting thing to bring up, right? That it has to also, not only does it have to be someone who like knows about what he's doing, it has to be someone who knows he's staying in this hotel, right? Which like that's a short list of people as far as we know, right? It makes you think of whoever's trailing him, right? Which I wanted to say the person trailing him could either be like Karen, right, which would be funny, or yet again like Ogi, right? The idea that Ogi, rather than Gai Izuko being unhappy with what Kaiki is doing, that it's actually Ogi who's unhappy with what he's doing, right? Because the idea would be that she is the one who set up this situation. She wouldn't want him like dismantling it in some way, right? Probably. I'm kind of assuming a lot with that logic, right? But you know what I mean, right? So I could imagine Ogi being the one who's been like trailing him. So therefore her knowing that he's staying in this hotel. But then again, it's like the letter it doesn't make sense for it to come from Ogi, I think, right? So I don't know. Who else would it be? Who else is at play here, right? He thinks of Ononoki with all these like ghouls sitting here. I think this is just like a representation of like Kaiki's paranoia, his imagination of the situation, all these like bad actors like out to get him, about what he's doing, It's really the sense of fear that I believe he has kind of like comes across to me as well. This unease about like what he's doing is really disrupting stuff that it feels like we don't understand, right? That like there's much bigger stuff at play that we don't really like, that we aren't aware of, you know what I mean? Stuff that Ogi's doing, stuff that Gun Izuku's doing, you know? Hmm. So this is where he's stupid. He thinks about how they had to put it in his locked room. But Tsuchigahara points out that you can just push it under the door. So yeah, that is very true. That is very true. And he thinks about, what is the enemy? Isn't my enemy right now that young deity? I don't think it's that simple. I certainly don't think she's the enemy. Actually, I don't think she's the enemy at all. Right? I don't think that's a good way to look at it. Right? Hmm. Maybe I'm up against some extraordinary syndicate. I don't think so. I don't think so. Figuring out I had cooled. Oh god. Figuring I had cooled down quite considerably. I turned on the hot water and warmed my body. Interesting. I was gonna say new opening. It's not really new opening. We just get new lyrics. Oh, it's a Kaiki duet with Shinjagahara now, which is insane. That crazy. I did not think we were gonna have Kaiki singing. That's awesome. Very awesome. I think this is my favorite opening. Right? It's got to be. I don't know. I. God, we got to do like an opening tier list or something at the end. You know, I got to listen to them all again. I really got to decide. So many of them feel so like good and meaningful though, right? Like when the lyrics switched for the Tsubasa Tiger opening in the last episode, and they felt so like good, you know, for like what was happening in that episode. That was so good. That was so good. I don't know. I don't know. It would be so hard, right? Right now though, this opening is so good though. I love it. So Kaiki calls Senju Gahara. They have some back and forth. It really reminds you of Aragi so much. Like this the back and forth that they have, the way Kaiki talks here, you know. Hmm. He doesn't want her to meet up with him. I have to wonder, of course, if even that is like some kind of fear for her safety now, right? Because it's like, yeah, he's definitely paranoid now, right? Hmm. I want to ask you something. You and Aragi, Oshino Shinobu, that girl Hanakawa, while trying to solve the issue concerning Sengoku Nadeko, before you came to me with your request, has anyone gotten in your way? Certainly not that we know of, right? It seems like Gahara doesn't say so either, right? I can't think of any way in which anyone would have gotten in their way, right? Um, because I mean, I guess again, it's like we haven't seen anything between the end of Otori and the beginning of this arc, right? That's kind of another gap, right? So I guess we don't really know, but it's certainly nothing that we've heard about, you know. Like I would be thinking about like Ogi, right? I would be thinking that in some way Ogi is continuing to like um push this situation and have it like develop further, right? If in some way this situation is what Ogi like foresaw and wanted, right? Something like receiving a letter telling you to pull out. Exactly. So he tells her everything about what happened with Ononoki and Gain. Yeah. We keep getting this shot of Kaiki and this like religious area, you know? Because we've been seeing him with like the gates over him, right? Like the mountain like shrine gates, right? Which that in itself has like obviously like religious like connotations to it. It's very interesting, right? Like the spiritualism kind of thing that's like exists like in his head, you know, that he keeps thinking about, you know. Every time we like he really thinks deeply, we go back to an area like this, you know. It's like now we've reached the end of those gates though. Very interesting. I don't really know what to make of it, right? Hmm. So we talk about Gain. Yeah. The reason Sengoku Nadeko became a god was because of Gain-san's talisman to begin with, and that's true, but Guy and Izuko didn't want this, right? Unless, like, Guy and Izuko and Ogi are working together as buddies. I have no idea, right? I have no idea. Well, no, I mean, if we take what Ononoki said at face value, it seems like Ogi and Guy and Izuko are, like, opposing forces in some sense, you know? Which is interesting. God, that actually feels like such an interesting thing to like think about, considering what we could say, what we imagine Ogi like represents. You know what I mean? Compared to Gai Izuko being like this objective, like truth knower. You know, she knows everything, right? The ultimate authority figure in a way. You know, being in some way at odds with Ogi, who like represents this potentially, I guess, represents this like subjective like morality that Aragi has like developed, you know, but of course he doesn't imagine it as like subjective, right? But you know what I mean, right? Hmm. And yeah, Guy Nizuko hasn't told anyone to pull out, certainly, right? And of course, I mean, Kaiki still isn't thinking of it in the same way as me, right? This idea of what Guy Nizuko did actually being to continue what Kaiki's doing, right? Hanakawa doesn't like him, of course. I mean, doesn't like her, Guy Nizuko. Yeah. So now we've cut connections, exactly. If you want to talk to Hanakawa-san right now, I think you should give up on that. And then she shows up later in the episode. It seems that Guy Senpai feels I'm going to fail. Perhaps, right? But it also seems like she wants you to keep going. So, hmm. As originally planned, Aragi and I just die. That's how it's. That seems like how Guy-san planned for things to be. Except no, it's really changing my perception of Guy like completely, right? Because if we are viewing what she's doing with Kaiki as actually a way to support him and have him keep doing what he's doing, then it's the opposite of this, right? Then Guy and Izuku doesn't want them both to die, right? Um, which is so I don't know. What does that mean? Right? Like I guess it's great if she doesn't want that, but like what Guy Nizuko just seems like the kind of person to me who has some kind of ulterior motive or something about whatever's like going on here, right? And yeah, I believe Nadeko probably perhaps could, yeah, go on a frenzy, right? In other words, it's like if a girl is okay with being rejected, but can't tolerate it if the guy rejects her by lying that he already has a girlfriend. I'm pretty familiar to what happened with Nadeko in a sense, right? Her already being in love with someone, so she had to reject the guy who confessed to her a Nadeko snake, right? Or with Nadeko's friend, like the second snake, right? Who was so mad at Nadeko when the guy that she liked confessed to her, right? And Kaiki thinks this. With facts, we move to a metaphorical discussion. Likening it to love obscured it for me entirely. Is that true, Kaiki? You have no experience with love at all. Is that you think? Is that yeah, my bad. However, right. Back here yet again. So Senju is very suspicious of his decision to not stop, right? To not pull out. Which again, it's like you can't really blame her, right? And this continual doubting that she has of Kaiki is very interesting. I wonder. I don't know. I wonder. I wonder. I understand her feelings, though she says disturbing things like they are nothing. Hmm. He sure did, but like not more than that, right? He just has the 3 million. Of course, I'm grateful that you accept my offer, but you can understand my uneasiness, right? He sure can, right? And it's unclear if that is his goal with his behavior or not, right? 100,000 yen plus 3 million yen. That's 3,100,000 yen. Clearly more than 3 million. Thank you. Thank you for the math lesson, Kaiki. Thank you. Thank you. I get the same amount of money whether I continue or I stop. So of course I'll keep going. It's very simple logic. That is a very interesting thing for him to say, right? Because in that sense, it's like what that kind of undermines everything in a way, right? Because he's supposed to do everything for money, right? Or in some way do everything like for himself in some way, right? Or at least liken it all back to Gain Toei or Kanbaru, At least that's certainly what he tried to do before. That's childish logic. Adults don't toss out their jobs so nonchalantly. I wonder. I don't know. That's an interesting way for him to respond to that. But I feel like it's like deeper than that, right? I don't know though. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, I feel like. Don't treat me like a child, right? And it's like it's back to that again, right? Him treating her like a child in some way, right? This way that he views her is very childish. Him not changing her view of her despite like her having changed so much as a person. But does that mean that she isn't a child? Not really, right? I don't know. I can't decide. I can't decide what I think about that. Taiki really is an enigma, and that's the point, right? He's supposed to be like this. So there's just so much stuff where it's just so unclear about him. Gun Senpai doesn't even matter anymore. It's over and done with. I like if you say so. I guess I'll stop thinking about her. Not the type that would use force to get her way, even if I didn't pull out. Yeah. Not the type that would give 2 warnings. Exactly. And Senju points out the obvious, that anyone could have planted the letter, right? Like, come on. I fell silent, realized there was no point refuting her hypothesis. Exactly, exactly. It's not that difficult for someone to deduce the hotel you're staying in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't be impossible for people that want to stop you from finishing your current job. And I guess again, it's just the question is there anyone who would want to stop his current job who is also stupid enough to think putting that letter under his door would make him stop? Or would in any way like have anything but the opposite effect, right? I just don't know who would fit that category, right? And then the inverse category, there are people, right, which would be someone who doesn't want him to stop and knows well enough that that letter would convince him to keep going, right? Um, there's people who fit into that category, like Nizuko, but she's already done her whole thing, so who else would it be? I don't know, right? Araragi? I don't think so. I don't think so. The Shadow Room may be a completely different case that has nothing to do with this. I kind of think it might be. I kind of actually think it might be, right? I don't think it's Ogi at all, you know? I think that would be so, like, short-sighted from her, you know? Unless the idea of Ogi not understanding Kaiki, like, actually means something. If it ends up being Ogi, then I'll think about that more, right? I will certainly think about that more. Because maybe there could be something there, the idea of Ogi, like, not understanding Kaiki, because of, like, this clear, like, parallel between Araki and Kaiki. I think there could be something there, right? But we'll see, right? It's always like this. Nothing to worry about. Interesting thing for him to say. It's always like this, huh? Hmm. Thought that you might have a clue, but she doesn't. I haven't told anyone that I've requested this from you. Yeah. Yeah. Aragi might have caught on if he checked my cell phone without me knowing, but no, it wouldn't be that, right? Like Aragi wouldn't do that, right? It's funny how Kaiki like knows that well enough, right? Hmm. The sender of the letter, unlike Gain-senpai, may try to hinder me from deceiving Sengoku Nadeko. Yeah, which seems like a potential Ogi thing, but again, I mean, we've just kind of gone in circles with this, right? I don't know. And he flushed it down the toilet immediately. So yeah, no analyzing the handwriting. I don't know how Shinjigahara would do that anyway, but that's not gonna work. I quickly throw out things I don't need, or things I find unpleasant, and never keep them at hand. What a thing to say, huh? That's how you tossed me out too. Yeah, yeah. I was unable to determine if she was trying to help me or not. Oh well, I thought, and ignored that. No point in bullying the children. He always thinks like that, huh? Children. Very interesting. Hmm. Just go make out with Aragi. Exactly. She's considering the possibility that I'll pull out, or even betray and bail her. Oh God, or even betray and bail on her. Yeah, yeah. And I just don't know how he thinks about that. How sensible. Well, I won't ask what she'll be doing. Right? I don't know what he thinks about that because, like, with was that last episode? I think right. With the whole thing about her like bringing her bag with her or not, like when she goes to the bathroom, when she leaves the table, you know. Very interesting, right? Because in that sense, it's like he has this attitude of thinking that people should like doubt, right, and not believe things, you know. Does that extend to him as well? I mean, it seems to, right? He says it's sensible in this way, you know, but I don't know. I don't know. Hmm. And Senshigahara is worried. Yeah, she's worried about Sengoku, about Nadeko, like, um, almost essentially deceiving him in a way, right? Like him, yeah, her being an enchantress, you know, her being so good at like essentially deceiving others, right? She really is, right? You know, the perception I've gotten certainly is that she deceived a large part of like the audience watching the show, right, into thinking she's such a boring character like in Bake, you know. Um, and that was kind of the whole point, right? Is to make you think that's all she was, you know? So yeah, she's very good at deceiving in that way. And the idea is that Kaiki himself would of course not be immune to that, right? Kaiki himself in some way, if he's not careful about it, depending on how stubborn Kaiki himself is, he would be like especially prone to be deceived by it, right? Because of the similarities between him and Nautico, right? And him not wanting to recognize it in that way, you know? Hmm. And it's like, and yeah, the more he interacts with her, I think the more he will be like tricked by her, almost in that way. You know what I mean? Yeah, the addicting snake poison, huh? Hmm. Very interesting. So he decides to go buy some alcohol for Nautico. I guess I don't know. Is that really what we need to do? I think it's very funny how like she's Senju was so worried about the way Kaiki's approaching this. And so he immediately decides to start giving her more money and give her alcohol, and like he just kind of doubles down and does even more. You know, and it's very interesting how he thinks about like how since she's a god now she can't refuse the sake, right? That's interesting because I think that actually goes to the heart of like her problem here. Makes you think maybe Kaiki understands more of it than we understand, right? Or perhaps he's just talking about her because she's a god now, so she is an oddity. So perhaps it's also his understanding that like as an oddity too, that's kind of something that she has to do in a way, right? Hmm. He gave her even more money. Here, what there's another text flash here in a sec, right? Back here. 10,000 yen were interesting enough, but I wondered what she'd do when you throw 20,000 in. Exactly, yeah. And she dies, is what happens. Yeah, exactly. I thought she might have died. Hmm. And she loves the alcohol. That's for sure. Can't blame her. Can't blame her. Now I can pass the time until I kill Kiyomi Oni-chan. Awesome. Perfect. Perfect. You say passing the time, Sengoku, but Cat's Cradle is a profound art. It's interesting. I don't know what to make of the idea of Cat's Cradle in some way being like a I don't know what to make of it. I don't know. It means something, I guess. And with that, I guess we've kind of circled back to where we started the discussion because we kind of did it backwards. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. I guess that's it. We kind of covered everything. This feels like kind of a messy one again, but like, hey, I did my best. There's just so much stuff going on. I mean, I think it's interesting to really try and think about what's happening, right? It just seems like kind of like what Kaiki said in this episode. There's like this great syndicate that's after him. It's not like that exactly, right? But there certainly are a there were forces at play and people doing things that we don't understand. We don't know their motivations, right? We don't know what Ogi's doing and we don't know what Guy is doing. And I have no idea what their motivations are. So who knows? I'm sure we'll figure it out eventually. So yeah, I guess that's it. So please, if you enjoy my videos, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and I will see you in the next one.